Brenda, she knows all about this kind of thing. She's worked on the pollution stuff for a long time. She's an emeritus fellow at the Environmental Change Institute at Oxford University. She's co-founder of a number of local things, the Coalition for Healthy Streets and Active Travel, Low Carbon Oxford North and Oxford North Community Renewables. So we're very lucky, and she's published lots of stuff, which I'm sure you can look up. So we're very lucky that we have her speaking to us this evening, obviously for nothing, and putting the work in to do this for us. And I would say we're also very lucky that she lives in North Oxford, because she's putting a huge amount into North Oxford. And welcome, Brenda, and thank you very much for agreeing to do this for us. And the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ali. I hope that means that you've got my screen sharing up. Have you, Jonathan? Excellent. I'm delighted to broach this subject tonight, but I wanted to stress that a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is evolving. There's very little of it absolutely fixed and definite, but we're in a very exciting phase in Oxford in terms of what is happening with transport. And I hope that at the end of this talk, you'll agree with me. Now, let's see if I can change. Yeah, there we go. Now, what I'm actually asking you to think about, and what we've all got to face up to, is a decision about what we want most in Oxford from our transport system. What is beginning to be an option is cleaner air, safer streets, more active travel, which means cycling and walking, instead of what we have at the moment, which is the existing routes and travel patterns with no constraints on car use except traffic jams. Now, this choice is happening, and there is absolutely no doubt it's going to have an impact on all of us. And to an extent, it's a choice between sort of the greater societal good, which is of course the top line, and what is convenient for us as individuals, which is our existing patterns. And I think that we all need to face up to this discussion in our own heads and households to see what we want. First of all, though, I want to identify the main emissions that are resultant from travel in Oxford, or anywhere for that matter. The first two, nitrogen dioxide and particulates, the PM10s and the PM2.5s, are both quite clearly bad for health. What is happening with it, and they come from the exhaust, in the first case, of a petrol or a diesel vehicle, particularly diesel. Now, nitrogen dioxide levels are illegal in many areas of the city, but they have been improving quite substantially, and they certainly improved during lockdown. The target, the legal target, is this 40 micrograms per cubic meter, and across the whole year. And 6 locations in Oxford, including the Cutslow roundabout, quite demonstrably failed to achieve those. And they're national targets, and by and large, the government has not been helping local authorities achieve them. Now, what is being proposed at the moment, there's a consultation that actually ended today from the City Council, that what we should be aiming for by 2025 is this 30 micrograms per cubic meter, which is highly ambitious, and it's not totally clear how the City Council think we're going to achieve it, but I think it's wonderful that they want to achieve it. Now, the PM10s and the PM2.5s, they don't come out of the exhaust. They come from the way we drive, the way that our tyres interact with the roads and our brakes. It can come from wood stoves, sometimes from aspects of agriculture. And there's very definitely no safe limit with PM10s. The smaller they are, and if they're very small, smaller than 2.5, we can't accurately measure them. And we breathe them in and they're not at all good for our respiratory system. One of the curious things is that even though nitrogen dioxide declined considerably during lockdown, the particulates didn't. So I don't think we've got a very good handle really on where they're all coming from. Now, the third set of emissions is carbon dioxide, which comes from the fuel used, it's including electricity. And I'm going to just give you a little bit more detail on electric vehicles and carbon dioxide. Now, an electric vehicle is using electricity. The electricity has come from a power station. At the moment, we have power stations fired by gas, a little bit still of coal, and we have renewables in offshore wind, etc., producing electricity. The system, the data collection system in the UK, says that all of the emissions that are associated with a kilowatt hour of electricity count at the power station. Because when it's produced, when that electricity is produced, you don't know where it's going to go. It might go into industry, to our light bulbs, or to an electric vehicle. So you end up in the slightly counterintuitive situation where an electric vehicle has no emissions. It is a zero emission vehicle because its emissions are counted elsewhere in the system. So you are able to have a zero emission zone in Oxford, and it does count as zero emissions just because of this data artifact. That's in comparison with the internal combustion engine, where the emissions from petrol and diesel count as transport, and they would be lower if it was a hybrid. Now, there's a great deal of discussion and happenings within Oxford's transport, and by and large, the City Council and the County Council are working together on these. But it is the county that actually has the budget and the responsibility as the Highways Authority. So occasionally they don't entirely see eye to eye or work arm in arm, but they try very hard, I think. Now, I'm going to look at all of these four in a little bit more detail. First of all, there is what's called the LC WIP, which is a local cycling and walking infrastructure plan. And that's specific to Oxford. There are other ones for Bicester and Abingdon and Didcot and things. There's the zero emission zone, which I've already mentioned, and that is primarily about carbon dioxide and the other forms of pollution. And the idea at the moment is that it will come in 3 zones, red, orange and green, and cover the whole city by 2035. And that's primarily pushing us towards electric vehicles. The big one is connecting Oxford, which is very comprehensive and should be happening or start happening in 2021. It was going to start this year, but been delayed. And that's got a slightly different focus, which is less congestion and more active travel. So there is a slight split in the objectives of the ZEZ and connecting Oxford. And finally, we've just, because of COVID, got the government's Emergency Active Travel Fund, which allocated about £3 million to Oxfordshire, to be spent in Oxfordshire, and a bit of it, of course, in Oxford. And it's got the rather horrendous target of being spent by March. Now, this is the LC WIP, and as you can see, there's the, there's the ring road, and here's Banbury and Woodstock. The dark solid blue lines are what's called quick routes. Some of them are on roads and some of them are beside roads. The turquoise ones are the connecting quieter routes. It's where people like me cycle rather than those that are really good and enthusiastic cyclists. It's horrendous. I don't particularly expect you to understand much from this, but even though some roads like Woodstock and Banbury don't have any colour other than the yellow on them, they're just shown as an important road. In fact, over the next few years, I think it's between now and 2031, the number of cyclists on those particular roads is expected to at least double. And there are plans in the offing, but there's virtually nothing known about those yet, to upgrade both roads in the near future. This has been adopted, so it is policy by the County Council. Now, this is the first part of the zero emission zone. The red roads are the red zone. As you can see, it's an extremely small area. It's very, very token, and quite a lot of it, like Core Market, now St Michael's Street and Queen Street, you can't drive down already. A little bit extra is being brought in, like Ship Street and New Inn Hall Street. Oh, sorry, I've gone back. No, there we go. New Inn Hall Street being a dead end it has delivery vehicles rather than cars, though there is some disabled parking there. The aim is, as I said, to try and get us into electric vehicles, and particularly the residents and users of this area. This is real tokenism, but it is just to get us recognising that zero emission zones are happening, and gradually it will spread out into a slightly bigger area, and then, as I said, by 2035, virtually the whole of Oxford. Now, connecting Oxford came in last year, and we had to respond last year, and it's a major transformation, and this is a quote from the document, towards a modern, efficient, reliable, affordable and sustainable transport system. Can't be better than that, can it? It was issued by both councils. The consultation ended in October last year, and by and large, there were, I think it was 2/3 in favour and 1/3 opposed. But it is comprehensive and transformative. And I've understood that the councils are working on the technical details now, so that they're going to be ready when COVID allows us to bring as much of this forward. It includes 5 traffic filters, which is what we now call bus gates. And those are absolutely key and crucial to the way in which Connecting Oxford sees itself developing. I'll do a bit more on bus gates in a minute. There's also a workplace parking levy, but only in what's the Eastern Arc, and you'll see that on a map in a minute. So that to reduce the amount of private parking in the city, because if there's a levy raised, the hope is that some of the businesses will decide to get rid of the parking place rather than keep it there. But if they do keep it, they can either pay the levy themselves or pass it on to the people parking there. And one of the benefits of the levy, because it goes to the council, is that it will fund better bus routes and services. So the WPL is the workplace parking levy. Altogether, particularly because of these traffic filters, bus gates, it will be possible to have segregated cycle routes and wider pavements. It's really important to understand that quite a lot of these options for the future work together. If you don't have a workplace parking levy, how are you going to fund better bus routes? If you don't have the bus gates, how are you going to have the space for the segregated cycle routes, etc. So here is, I'm afraid, a rather fuzzy Connecting Oxford proposal. This green is the Eastern Arc, where the workplace parking levy would be imposed. Though quite a few of the consultants, including COSAT, which I was co-chair of, and the University of Oxford, said they thought it should apply to the whole of Oxford. So we don't know how the councils are going to respond to that. If you can look now at the red bits, this is where the traffic filters would be, and they, the bus gates, as we are now calling them mainly, I think they were trying to get away from something quite so challenging as a bus gate, say a traffic filter, but there you go. The bus gates allow buses through, taxis through, cyclists, but not private cars, not delivery vehicles, probably every day, probably the bulk of the day. Worcester Street and Longwall are the two bus gates that are most likely to go ahead, were most likely, it's all a bit in abeyance at the moment. Because the county were dragging their feet a bit about it, the city has stepped in to say they will fund these. It's not a city responsibility, but that's what they're proposing to do. At the moment, as I said, there's a bit of uncertainty about what is going to go ahead. Marston Ferry Road is the one that would affect us most, and is partly because they don't want too much traffic getting diverted and clogging up routes to the hospital. Here you go. Now we've had a bus gate for a very long time. I'm sorry, I don't know how many years we've had it, but it's several. This is the High Street, and as you can see, this is operative from 7:30 in the morning to 6:30 p.m. There's a camera just about somewhere there. And I don't think we've had much problem with it. We really quite like the lack of cars. And I don't think it's actually had a major negative effect on many of the businesses. That many of them pre-COVID seem to be thriving. So the worry that many businesses have about the effect of bus gates may be a little bit overheated. Now here's a picture of the bus gates. The purple ones in the middle are the ones that exist. So there's the High Street, and these are some around the castle, etc. I mentioned just now Worcester Street and Longwall as the two, which are the two red ones, which the City Council is proposing to fund. And the other three blue ones are the other three that the County Council and City Council put into connecting Oxford. And the crucial thing about all of this is to look at the background colours. The aim and objective of these traffic filters, these bus gates, is to get us into segments, so that for us in North Oxford, in the Mauve area, we can come in from the north and we can go out from the north, but we can't get to the green because we're stopped there. We can't get to the orange because we're stopped there. We can't get to the yellow because we're stopped there. So, and it's this segregated approach. So, and it comes back to my first slide about what are we prepared to think about. So John and I have a daughter who lives off Botley Road, and in future we will, which we've been doing much more now, we either cycle or walk, or if we really need to get in the car, we would have to go round the Ring Road and down Botley Road and not through the centre. There's the two orange ones are extra bus gates, traffic filters, one at the bottom of Morell Avenue and the other near the top. So sorry, I keep doing that. Which have been proposed by activists and COSAT, just because otherwise there were too many routes from east to South Oxford. The City Council, I'll show you later, has come up with one that we were, no, the County Council has come up with one in the traffic filters. of the traffic filters here on Cowley Road, which is totally unexpected. So this is why the whole debate as to whether we're going to have 5, we're going to have 7, we're going to have this one or that one is really quite difficult. Once you've got bus gates, as I said just now, you can start organising the road towards more healthy and active travel. It doesn't look like it, but there's actually a cycle lane here, and these cars are parked in it. Once you've got bus gates, you've got less cars, you've got less need for a bus lane. There isn't a bus lane on this bit of road. This is part of Iffley Road. And so therefore it's possible to have segregated cycle lanes. So it's exactly the same view. And this was done for COSAT by Andy Coram, a photo montage. And here you can see it's quite clearly, it's a wider cycle lane. It's got these wands up to protect the cyclists in both directions. And there is perfectly sufficient room for the buses and the cars to continue to pass each other. What has gone is the parking on the road, but in many cases, the adjacent houses have got forecourts and could use them. But there is upheaval, there is an impact, but if what we want is this more healthy, more active travel, it is the sort of thing we've got to do, and you can't do it until you've got a bus gate, until you've altered the quantity of traffic going through the city during the day. Another of the proposals that's in the offing are these low traffic neighbourhoods. Most of the ones that are planned, these 7 are already planned. And as you can see, there's quite a heavy East Oxford bias towards them. The only one that's near us is Jericho. And what you have in a low traffic neighbourhood is you close off streets that were previously used often as a rat run. You close them off, you make them available for cyclists, you make them available for people walking, and you quite often have attractive planting to make it look nicer. Sorry, but this is on a rather wet day in Waltham Forest in London. And as you can see, it's taken the whole road and transferred it into a place for cyclists and walkers. Now, just looking for in our area, the Jericho, the debate started with the closing off of Walton Street at the southern end because of the sinkhole. It's been quite a fraught set of discussions by Don't Choke Jericho. And again, these are montages by Andy Coram that were done for them. But the proposal probably now is, and they're working with a consultant, is that Walton Street is closed in the middle, but open at both ends. And the bit that's closed is here by the Phoenix Cinema, and it becomes a pedestrian area with people able to sit outside Branca or the Jericho Cafe. And it's a very nice central area, but you can come in from the south and go out from the south, come in from the north and go out from the north, but you can't drive all the way down. And I hope that that goes through. It's one of the more advanced plans for a low traffic neighbourhood. Another of the things that goes particularly with connecting Oxford and bus gates is the idea that we have, and low traffic neighbourhoods, they do go together, is the idea of having school streets, that it is no longer sensible or possible for people to drive up to a school gate, pollute the air, collect their child and drive off with fumes for everybody else's children. The idea here is they put up some lovely colourful bollards or similar and pick up the children by walking or cycling. Of course, it's particularly appropriate for primary schools and less so for secondary. But at the moment, the only way in which you can have a school street is if it's as part of a low traffic neighbourhood. So you get these lovely pictures of kids playing in closed off roads. And this, it's difficult to tell, but what another of the developments that goes with school streets towards getting kids into active travel rather than and out of their grandparents' cars are these bike buses. So you have a few adults and a collection of children, and they bike in convoy together. I don't think in many places they do it every day. This was for a demonstration in Broad Street, but there are ways in which we can encourage kids to adopt healthy and active travel lifestyles. Another of the supplementary developments that's being discussed is making some of our wonderful historic areas even more attractive, particularly when there's less cars coming in and less need for car parking. So this is Broad Street looking east, and this is Broad Street looking west. If the car parking goes, COSAT did a survey last year and found that very, very few of the people parking in those cars actually went to any of the local shops. They mainly got there because their sat-nav sent them there as a place to park in Oxford. But you could make it, you could have cyclists along the side, you could have a beautiful feature in the middle, whether it's a fountain or a sculpture or a bandstand, and again, more seating outside. There are ways in which we could make the centre of Oxford far more attractive, and I think there's quite an interesting debate about post-COVID, how many of us are going to continue to go to shops, because so many of us are now shopping online. What is going to bring people into the centre of Oxford? Is it the historic places rather than Westgate? And should we be planning for that? To be debated. Another area which could benefit substantially from reduced parking and road space is St Giles. This is at the moment we have fairly narrow pavements, we have parking, we have people on cyclists, a wide expanse of cars, roads for cars, and you could transfer that, transform it. So you've still got space for cars, you've got a wider cycle track, and the rest, if you did away with the parking, could become a space to walk and have attractive exhibitions or activities. We know we can do it. And by the way, the trees don't move. It was just me playing around with street mix and not doing it very well. But the way in which we've dedicated space to cars has probably got to change. And this is a thought about what it could look like from Joel Darby of Original Field. She did for COSAT. And here you've got the cycle lanes, you've got proper pedestrian crossings. There isn't one at the moment in the middle of St Giles, and some lovely sculptures or activities or places to go and buy flowers or have a cup of coffee. And there's still plenty of room for the buses. There is, by the way, not a single bus stop in St Giles, so you can have quite a narrow road and not inconvenience the bus or cars because they don't have to pass much. Yet another example of an area that could benefit from transformation is Hythe Bridge Street. It is, for many people, still the approach to the city. They get off the train and walk towards the centre. Some of the pavements are atrocious. It's not a particularly attractive street in any way. And Joelle dreamt up this idea for us so that this Hythe Bridge Street is no longer available for vehicles, but it is for cyclists and walkers. The cars can be going down Park End Street over there. She's taken away the wall between Hythe Bridge Street and the car parking, and she's suggested that the car parking goes, and again it's an open space. There was one suggestion once upon a time that it reverts back to a canal basin. Lots of opportunities with all of these, as I said at the beginning. These are ideas, these are proposals, they're things that are evolving. We don't know where we're going to go, but it is nice to think what opportunities there could be. Now, the Emergency Active Travel Fund in many ways is one that's going to hit us first if it goes through. And this is for Oxfordshire, not just for Oxford. The first, and it's a post-COVID fund that the government has initiated, particularly to promote healthy travel and active travel, which we were all doing much more because we weren't driving around during the summer. The first tranche this summer, the county council who had put in the bid as the Highways Authority, they put in distinctly unambitious proposals for 600,000. They were very worried about their ability to deliver. And so it included things like trimming the grass back from the cycle tracks, which seemed to me to be something they should be doing anyway. The government didn't like it. And so therefore provided only 300,000 instead of £600,000. The county council actually said it would make up the difference, but I haven't seen much evidence. I don't know how many of you will have seen at the back of your 7 roads, the national cycle route, cycle network 51. I think it's got some new printed signs on the road of a cyclist to remind people that this is predominantly a cycle lane, but just printing a cyclist's logo on the road isn't doing a great deal to help people. The best example I know of where that money has been spent, if you go and cross Magdalen Bridge, you'll see that the cycle lane has been widened. There's a lot of debate about what width we want a cycle lane to be. Do you want it to be 1 metre, 1.5 metres, 2 metres? And there's a recent ruling which says that 2 cyclists should be able to pass each other. And we've also got these new cargo bikes, and which are quite wide. So there's the Magdalen Bridge cycle lane is now able to cope with those. But as a result, and you can't widen a bridge that easily, as a result, 2 buses on Magdalen Bridge can no longer pass without one of them going into the cycle lane. It's, places like Abingdon Road are really, really difficult because they're just not wide enough to do everything we want to with them. Now, tranche 2 is active. Oops, sorry, done it again. The Oxfordshire County Council bid for £4.2 million, although they were really only allocated about 2.4 million in August. They did it without any consultation. There was very limited links to what had already been presented in conjunction with the city on connecting Oxford and zero emission zones. And the bid did include 2 bus gates, one on Cowley Road, as I pointed out, and the other one quite similar to the one near Warnford Road at the top of Divinity Road. The 5 low traffic neighbourhoods, which we've already looked at. Now, there's been no decision that I've heard of by the Department for Transport as to who's got what money, but they have sent a letter around saying highways authorities, councils that didn't do well in tranche 1, and I'm afraid that Oxfordshire County Council comes in that category, may not get the money that they wanted in tranche 2, and the DFT are looking at that very carefully. So we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know how much of the money we're going to get. We don't know what would they spend that even if they got less than this, etc. One of the difficulties for them is that it has to be spent by March next year, which is a really tight timetable. Now, this was their Oxford bid. There's the Cowley Road bus gate. There's the Divinity Road, Warnford Road bus gate. That was suggested by COSAT and Oxfordshire Livable Streets. Nobody had ever heard of this one before. There was already a low traffic neighbourhood for this part of St Mary's Ward, but this bit, as far as I knew, was new. And the Headington and Quarry low traffic neighbourhood is very substantial. The other low traffic neighbourhoods down here were already part of tranche 1 to an extent. And so these were the new ones. We don't know what's going to happen. It does show the 2 bus gates in the centre that the City Council were prepared to fund, but just recently there's been a setback and a decision by the county, again this city-county slight tension or uncertainty, saying that they don't want them to go ahead. These were meant to be in just after September, but nothing seems to have happened. So to tell you what is going to happen is, as you can see, difficult, if not impossible. So my resume over what I think I've been telling you is that we want to make Oxford a healthier and less polluted city. One of the reasons we want to do this is because not only we've got problems at the moment over high levels of pollution and high levels of congestion, but we know there are plans for substantial numbers of new homes, both outside and inside the city, but particularly outside, and therefore increasing pressure on people perhaps wanting to drive into the centre of Oxford. And of course things post-COVID, or if we are post-COVID, with the problem at the moment is that people are reluctant to get into public transport, to get into buses, and so therefore people are more likely to get into cars, which is making the situation bad again. So we need to reduce the number of cars because we want less congestion. Electric vehicles are a help, but we still need fewer cars. If all of the diesel and petrol cars get replaced by an electric vehicle, we've still got congestion, which isn't what we want. We need to have less cars, so there's less need for bus lanes. And if you get rid of some of those bus lanes, you've then got some space on the road which you can make into wider cycle paths and wider pavements. So it's easier to cycle, easier to walk. And as I said, in some cases like Banbury and Woodstock roads, we're expecting the number of cyclists to at least double. And the government has said that it wants segregated cycle paths, like one I showed you for Iffley Road. It doesn't want them as lines on a pavement like we have up Woodstock. If we've got less congestion, less cars, we can have faster buses and possibly a better service. It should be a better service. So therefore we will be healthier people because we're doing more exercise. We would have a healthier planet with less carbon dioxide, less nitrogen dioxide, less PM10 and less PM2.5. And all of these 3 in particular are thought known to make COVID worse. Thank you.
I think we should be very grateful to Brenda for speaking to us. We're also grateful that we have Brenda, who's been such a powerful advocate of this stuff for years and cared about it for years, probably a long time before many of us have worried about air pollution. So I would like, on behalf of the Seven Rose Group, Brenda, I would like to thank you very much indeed for speaking to us, and you know, a thumbs up or a round of applause, whatever people want to do.
Thanks, Riley. Thank you.
More than the thumbs up, remember that if you want to donate to Brenda's chosen cause, which is Fuel Poverty Action, look at the link Jonathan gave you and make your donation after the meeting.
Ali, can I just add one thing about Fuel Poverty Action? One of the reasons why I particularly keen that we can give them support, they are virtually the only group that nationally that is helping the fuel poor that live in Grenfell type tower blocks. And these are either blocks where the cladding has not been removed, which is of course a huge mental strain, or it's been removed and they're even colder. In very, very few places has the cladding been removed and put back. And Fuel Poverty Action are a brilliant group, very small group, virtually unfunded, doing fantastic things.